So, like I say, thank you very, very much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. Now, you're obviously all in sort of different departments. Marissa, you're in civil engineering.
Yep.
Rebecca, you're in cost management. And Alicia, you're building surveying. So, start with you, Marissa. What was it that attracted you to the construction industry?
I really enjoyed geography.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so I looked into the root of anything geographical type, and civil engineering was one of them. So it'd be nice. I thought it'd be nice to be able to work on something that would be in the real world at some stage.
That's really interesting. Oh, that's one I've not heard before, actually, geography. Normally it's,
Yeah.
oh, I really liked maths or
No,
really
geography.
or so, yeah, geography. No, that's an interesting one. So what was it sort of about geography that led you to think about, you know, buildings and construction? And
More like the architecture of buildings I enjoyed.
yeah.
But I didn't want to go down the architecture route. So being able to work with, say, architecture,
Yeah.
yeah, I just
Nice.
really enjoyed the thought of being able to, you know, say, oh, I did that on so and so project.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. I like that. Alicia, I'll come to you next. What was it that drew you to construction?
I'd say it's like when I was younger, I used to love like grand designs and I used to do the hammer and stuff like that. So I think that's probably where it like started. And then I was looking if I did some work experience in like a building control kind of setting, and then that's when I decided to go into like building surveying for my degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And Rebecca, how about you?
I will be totally honest. I sort of fell into the construction industry because I did a business and management degree at university, graduated in the recession, was really struggling to find work at the time. And I started at a subcontractors as just admin staff. I've always had a thing for maths, hence me now being a QS. But the manager there, managing director there, said, I want to train you to be a QS. And I think my response was, what's a QS?
Oh.
And it's gone from there, really. That was 7 years ago.
That's really
and
interesting.
it was great. You know, wouldn't change any of it. So.
Oh, good. Wow, that's really interesting. So you've all got very different stories, different backgrounds, and different reasons for coming into construction. So that's really interesting. So again, this might be different for all of you. Obviously, you're all women in a very male-dominated industry, which is typically thought of as, I know Ian from Ridge used the term dirty, you know, being on site and being in dirt. You know, is it really like that? And what's your sort of take on the industry as a female? Rebecca, I'll come to you first.
Can be dirty, yes. Depends on which site you go on and how much mud there is. It as you say, it's quite a quite male dominated industry, but I don't really think that's never fazed me. I've always been interested, always wanted to get out on site and, as you say, get your boots dirty. So yeah, doesn't really faze me.
Nice. Okay, cool, good. And Alicia?
Yeah, I'd say the same. Some of my sites are still the women's toilets there aren't very nice. I'll say that. Some of them, but it's because they just never get used really. But yeah, no, a lot of my sites is mainly like men on them, but it doesn't again really faze me. Not much an issue.
Marissa, same to you?
Yeah, it doesn't faze me either. And being a civil, we have to lift drainage covers, so
Okay.
foul and surface. So it's not the quite glamorous job.
Sure.
But it definitely is it's getting better, but it definitely is still quite male dominated. Because I remember being at university, and in one of my first few lectures in first year, I sat there, and because I was quite far at the back, I sat there and counted how many girls I saw, and out of a room probably that fit around 250 people, there was like 20.
Wow.
Like a handful in the whole room.
Gosh.
But yeah, it is definitely one of those things that if I get asked what I do and I say civil engineering, it's always, oh really? Like they're
It's a
always
shock.
quite surprised that you're in that sort of industry.
Yeah. So there's a couple of questions I've thought of off the back of what you just said actually, but in terms of you know, being on site and getting your boots dirty and stuff, is there another side to your jobs that maybe people don't know that much about? Rebecca, you're nodding, so I'm going to come to you.
I mean, a lot of mine is quite office based. I think the main focus, what people used to think QSs were, is we walk around with lots of files, lots of paperwork, we're always on site. But a lot of it now, the way that technology is going, you can do from the office, you can do from home. Obviously, we all worked from home during lockdown. We were able to adapt to that quite well. So I think it's mainly technologies plays a big part, and obviously because a lot of measurements that I do now are all on my laptop. I don't go to site and walk around site with a measuring wheel, and you know we don't do that anymore. So technology really has changed. Certainly, I think a QS role massively, which is good.
Yeah, I think technology is one of the biggest subjects, I think, in the construction industry at the moment, isn't it? It's, you know, it's coming on slowly but surely, and I think there's a big focus on it, especially post pandemic, because as you say, people were forced to work from home, so you've had to find new ways of doing things. So coming back then, you know, Marissa, what you said about 20 out of 250 in a classroom being females, that's an incredible statistic.
Yeah.
And it is kind of like that in the industry, you know, it's a very small percentage. So would any of you say that you've been treated any differently for being female in a typically male oriented industry?
Not within Ridge, but
No.
previous employment, it's just different. You know, but it's a learning curve, which is good, but it always been treated the same within Ridge. You know, treated as everybody else, which is good.
Good.
Yeah, there's never been any sort of, we're only getting you in because you're female. Like it was like fair ground, as you have the results,
you're in for your talent, not for anything else.
Not for being a statistic within the business.
Yeah, good. That's good. That's nice to hear, actually. And so on Ridge, then, I mean, like you say, Rebecca, you've maybe been treated a little bit differently prior to joining Ridge. So how is it that Ridge is different? What are they doing to combat any prejudice or bias against females?
I suppose there's just no mention, you know, or because you're a woman, you don't sort of ever feel that way. It's never really mentioned in the workplace. So you're just treated as everybody else, I suppose. There's no real you know, differences or things that they do differently for us as women. You're just treated the same as everybody else, and you know, you're involved in all the different projects, you know, which is great. So yeah, just
I
treated.
think we just get it. I think everyone's being male and female, we're all put on the same pedestal, and it's just whether or not you're more, say, higher up as in management. There's nothing to do with any sort of gender. It's more just your role. You're there to do your role.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's really good. I think Ridge are onto something there, really, because whilst there is this huge push to drive more women into the industry, and there is that focus on gender, actually it is about treating people completely the same, isn't it? And not having that pedestal either way. So yeah, they're definitely onto something. I'm backtracking on myself a bit after I just said that, but obviously it is important to get more females into the industry, for a number of reasons. Actually, Ian discussed in my interview with him about the fact that, you know, women do think very differently to how men think. So actually having that balance is very good for a business. So, I mean, that aside, do you have any thoughts on why it's so important to get to interest more young females in a career in construction? Alicia, I'll come to you. Oh no, go on, Marissa. Go on.
No, I was just gonna jump in and say that I just don't think ever like the construction industry was a route that was open to me. So it was never, you know, you had all like midwifery, you had, you know, the more common female type roles introduced, rather than say the role I'm in now. I would have never have heard of that if I didn't purposely look into it myself. Yeah,
I think it needs to start earlier in life, almost from school. You know, to get all pupils, you know, male and female, into, you know, what is construction, and almost get girls interested then. I mean, I run, I'm in girl guiding, and I run a brownie unit, so they're sort of 7 to 10-year-olds. That's possibly a bit too young, but we do certain things, because obviously I'm in construction and my sister's in banking. You know, we tailor meetings to suit what we know, kind of. So starting them young.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I think you're absolutely right as well. You know, because I've been doing this a while now, and I was speaking to a lot of women in construction, and that is a theme that it just wasn't presented to them. It was never given as an option. So I think you're absolutely onto something there. Alicia, sorry, you've been ever so quiet. Do you have anything to add?
No, I'd say the same thing. Like at school, it was never really an option. Like even at like college, there were construction courses, but like they're mainly like boys on them, and that is kind of off-putting when you're like younger and you don't want to be the only person. So I did like business at college, and then when I went to uni, there was like only 2 girls on our course, but at that point it didn't bother me as much. But I'd say like when I was like 16, 17 going to college, I wouldn't have wanted to be like the only girl in like a room. But yeah, so I think it's definitely when they're younger, like if anybody had any exposure to it, you'd probably find there are more females in it.
So how, I mean, and this, again, this is just off the cuff, you might not have an answer, but how do you think we could combat that as an industry? Is there anything that businesses like Ridge or like Greystone could do to bring attention to those younger people?
I'd say maybe offering kind of work placements more to schools, because whenever we did any work experience at schools, you'd have to go out and find them. So like I did one in IT, and then I found that really boring. It was like, I don't want to do that. But like if they actually approached schools and offered work experience places, that could get more younger people like interested.
Yeah, I love that. That's an amazing idea.
Even going to like college, what you obviously have freshers week at university, but you know, something at college level, you know, just targeting different colleges. You know, have you ever thought about this? Which I know Ridge do. Obviously I don't think it's been happening as much due to the pandemic, but it might have. Obviously it's going to ramp up again soon, hopefully, so that'd be another good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So thinking, you know, you just mentioned that's something that Ridge does that I personally wasn't aware of. So what else does Ridge sort of do to encourage young people into the industry, to, you know, support diversity and inclusion? Is there anything in particular that you would shout about to somebody that doesn't necessarily know Ridge?
They have Ridge, I think, have introduced inclusion, sort of diversity. I think they do sort of workshops. It's more at, we call it PATM level, so partner, associate and team manager. So it's more, I'd say, above the three of us. It's more above our level. But they are, I know they have been setting up workshops for that, and discussions with senior management. And as I said, I know when I first started at Ridge, there was a few people that used to go to graduate, well, sort of college days, you know, potential job interests, etc. So I know that that was happening, obviously, a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic. So things like that.
Well, that's definitely just picking up that. I found Ridge through they came to my university in one of like the open day sort of things, where different companies came in trying to, you know, show the business and try and encourage, you know, that sort of generation into the business. And that's ultimately how I managed to come to Ridge. So through the process of speaking to someone, and then just working through the process, through interviews, through getting a placement role, and then finishing my degree, and then coming back as a full-time role.
I love that. That's amazing. Awesome. Alicia, how did you come across Ridge?
So I was finishing my degree, and then they're pretty close to where I live, so I applied to them, and they were like the only one I'd applied to yet. And and then they got back to me. And then it was just through that, but I had heard of them before because obviously they're quite close. But yeah, they were just pretty close to me. I'd say it'd be quite good if they got in at a younger kind of age, like when people are at college, because when they come at a uni stage, you kind of already know what you're going to be doing, like you already know companies, whereas like I think now there's more of a focus in the industry of like apprenticeships and that kind of route. So if they did like target more a college leaver rather than somebody that's leaving university, they probably would end up with more like young people who then they're training for several years before they actually start, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a thought, and I don't know if I will post this or not, but I had a thought in a couple of conversations that I've had about actually getting in at like GCSE level. So year 9, obviously they choose their GCSEs, and if you can have conversations with those people, it might steer them, because so many kids, like I remember, I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I just picked. I literally, there you go, I'll pick that one. So yeah, maybe the answer is getting in from sort of, you know, what age is that? 14, 15? Yeah, cool. Awesome.
I did see something the other day, I think it was on like LinkedIn, about like a built environment GCSE or something that they're thinking of introducing. I think it's just like talking about whether it actually be any beneficial. And I feel like it works because it is quite a big
100%.
Like they have so many GCSEs, they could do one for the built environment quite easily.
And if you think about how many disciplines are in Ridge, any sort of, you know, college course or degree that would introduce you to many options within a company, say like a multi-dis, it's just more exposure to being able to come into the construction industry at whichever route you ended up wanting to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's I mean, another thing that's widely talked about is the skills gap, and how, you know, how we're going to fill it, how we're going to find people to make up for the amount of professionals we need in the construction industry. And that's possibly an answer, isn't it, moving forward, is get them studying at a very young age.
I think another key one as well is, I noticed it when I graduated 10 years ago. I'm a bit older than the other two. I really struggled because obviously I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I had a completely different degree to obviously what I do now. I think it's key not just looking for people with that degree or that certain skill set, looking for someone that wants to try something new, because I really struggled to get a job because you haven't got the experience, or oh no, doesn't suit your degree. So I think even investing time and money in people that, like myself, have no idea, you know, about the industry, and you know, and doing that as well, I think would benefit them as well.
Yeah, 100%. And that kind of links in with what Alicia was saying about, you know, work placements when you're at school. Because again, I mean, obviously I'm not in the construction industry per se, but my experience was, oh, my dad runs a coach company, I'll just go work there for a week.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Rather than actually thinking, okay, well, what do I want to do? What am I good at? So yeah, schools could definitely, and businesses could work better perhaps with schools in that respect. Okay, cool. So tell me a little bit more about your experience, I guess, at Ridge then, for the three of you. So what is good about working for Ridge? Marissa, I'll come to you first.
I like the fact that you are treated as your role. So I'm treated as a civil engineer. I'm not treated as a female civil engineer. So I'm grateful to be able to experience that in, say, one of my first roles as coming out of university. So I haven't had to experience, say, what Becky has had to. But that might also be, you know, how times are changing. So how there are more females coming into the industry. Because I know in my year group at uni, they will say only the 20, but I actually sat in the year below, so the next cohort, and there was far more females in that cohort than in mine.
That's nice.
So there's already more coming in. So yeah.
Good. And Alicia, what about you?
I'd say Ridge is pretty good that, well, my week is like very varied in what we do. So we're on like quite a variety of projects. That means that we're not just always sat in the office, and we're not also just always on site. So I get quite good balance there, which I quite like. But yeah, the same with our team. I feel like I'm treated exactly the same as any of the guys on our team, and there's no difference really in like our roles or anything there.
Yeah, awesome. That's good. And Rebecca, I know you touched on your experience a little bit earlier, but have you got anything more to sort of add about, you know, the benefits of working at Ridge?
Yeah, I mean, they focus a lot on your strengths, I've found. So my previous job was mainly civils based, so surfacing, curbing, etc. And I think it's good that, you know, you can have people phone you and ask you for advice, which is great, because you know, they're sort of focusing on your strengths. But as Alicia said, you're also given a wide variety of projects. So I can be involved in a school one week, to a test facility another, to I was involved in a nuclear magnetic reactor project a couple of years ago. So it's amazing the different sectors that you can get involved in, and obviously you're getting all of this experience, which is great. So
yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I suppose probably make this my last question for you guys, but you're obviously all in different departments, and I work excuse me, closely with Ian, who's in the building services department. So in a multidisciplinary practice like that, for anyone that doesn't necessarily know the industry, is there much crossover? Do you get to work with each other's teams a lot? You do. Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly for myself, yeah. A lot of the projects are multidiscipline, so
Excellent.
get to work with quite a few of them, of the other disciplines, which is great.
And what's the benefit of that? Like, do you know, it must be interesting, because I'd certainly be interested to sort of pick up skills, knowledge from sort of other teams that will maybe help me in my career. Do you find that?
Yes, it's more the knowledge. So for example, M&E is not one of my strong points, but if we're working on a project with the mechanical and electrical engineers, it's great, because if ever, you're valuing an M&E project, you can go to site with them. You've got a rough idea, but if there's anything in particular, you know, I'll sort of ask one of the engineers while they're there, which is great, because you're learning,
Yeah.
you know, throughout the job. So
Amazing. Awesome. Well, girls, thank you very much for your